There is something alarming happening out there in the world of business. After many years of progress, culminating in a completely different and altogether better way of being during the pandemic, I see more and more companies clinging to the way that business used to be done. And even more concerning is the over-rotation towards the terrible management and leadership practices that were just so common in the 1990s and the early 2000s. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to look into corporate cultures and how certain fads should simply never make a comeback. I'm going to start this off with actually a very tangible example. I came across an article on CNN Business a couple weeks ago or so called, and this is the title, Billionaire CEO. People didn't work as hard when they were remote during COVID. And I've seen firsthand that this view is actually not at all uncommon. The article by Matt Egan is posted in the description down below. It's linked there for your reference. However, it is safe to say, for those who don't click the link, the article lives up to its title. It explains that the CEO of BlackRock Group, Stephen Schwarzman, billionaire, was quoted at a major economic forum in Saudi Arabia as saying people who worked remotely during the pandemic just didn't work as hard, regardless of what they told you. There are two key quotes from this article that I would like to bring forward. The first quote goes like this. During the pandemic, people got used to staying at home, Schwarzman said. It was actually more profitable for them to stay at home because, one, they didn't work as hard, regardless of what they told you. Second, they don't spend money to commute. They can make their lunch at home. They don't have to buy expensive clothes, so their incomes are higher. The second quote comes from JP Morgan Chase CEO, Jamie Dimon. I don't think you can lead people and work from home. The quote was in context of statements about how 60% of the company's employees are in the office 5 days a week, and 30% are required to be in the office 3 days a week. I have no idea where the other 10% went. We track it, Dimon said. Now, neither Schwarzman nor Dimon provide any data or any evidence, really, to support their assertions. They have opinions, clearly, but that's all they are. Opinions, no matter how forcefully you state them, or how fancy the economic conference is that you happen to be attending, is still just an opinion. An opinion will always only be an opinion in the absence of some kind of data to back it up. And both of these opinions are, to me, alarming. They reek of paranoia and are both saying to me, I don't trust my employees. I don't trust my people to do their work. So I'm going to assume they aren't doing their work. I don't know how to lead and manage remote teams, so I'm not going to learn. I'm going to bring everybody back to the office. That's what all of that says to me. Stephen Schwarzman, however, is being even more disingenuous. You see, BlackRock Group is a private equity firm. They invest in things. It has had and it has enjoyed the perks of significant investments in commercial real estate over the years. It has been trying to slash its exposure, which had reached a high of something like 60% in its real estate portfolio in 2007, and is now down to about 2%. And that does make sense because the commercial real estate ride is probably just about over. Now, it is in Blackstone's best interests to have leases on commercial real estate renew at full occupancy. It's as simple as that. Having people in the office is also in the interests of CEOs who just don't know how to adapt to more modern technology, culture, and mindset. Cracking whips and having everyone at the office for fixed hours was the way work got done when they made their millions or billions of dollars. So they haven't bothered to find a new way of being that could have a massive and positive impact on their employees. They are doing the only thing they know how to do in the relentless pursuit of ever greater personal wealth. While this article is a tangible example of the concerning reversal of progress, it is really just one example of many. I and many of my colleagues have felt the impact of this backslide firsthand. So one company I know of, it rented a second and entirely new office space in one of the most expensive geographies in Canada, basically as soon as the pandemic was over, just to make sure that a couple of dozen of fully remote employees who were hired during the pandemic as remote employees wouldn't be fully remote anymore. Oh, even better, that was followed up later in the year with layoffs for economic reasons. Nice, huh? Now, there's no question, remote work is a perk. It genuinely does help with families with children and managing daycare and skipping long and frustrating commutes. But I reject, and I even resent, the notion that people didn't work as hard remotely as they do in the office. My experience is 100% different than that. I've managed and led fully remote individuals and teams since long before the pandemic began. My experience across the board is that people generally don't sit at their desks at 9, leave for 30 minutes at lunch, and work until 6 p.m. straight. That much is true. What I see instead is that people start work very early. There's no commute, and they take periodic breaks through the day to manage the household. And they work well into the evenings and often the weekends just to make sure they get the work done. They weave their jobs into their home lives, and they do it very effectively. How do I know? Because as a manager, one of your core jobs is to understand what work is getting done and what might be lagging. You remove obstacles to other people getting their work done. You can't do that if you can't tell whether work is progressing or not. You need different tools than you would use in the office, for sure, both in terms of software, but also in terms of skill set. Leadership, on the flip side, is in very large measure tied to communication. I think for the last 15 years or so, remote communication can really be considered a solved problem. And the tools and support for such keep getting better and better. But it does require, again, a different way of thinking and some adjustments in terms of how you lead. Plus, there are thousands of companies out there who regularly employ remote workers. And there are hundreds of companies out there that are 100% remote and have been since long before the pandemic forced a change. To me, it's a very sad thing that so many businesses are being led by people who simply do not trust the very people they themselves hire. It's a real cause for concern, and it's also dragging us back to the Stone Age. The pandemic forced many companies to step out of their comfort zone and learn to operate fully remotely. And they did. And while I'm sure there were individuals who did take advantage of that situation, I actually don't know of a single one. Not one. Everyone I know who was put in that position rose to the occasion and got back to work, just in a different way. And I, for one, don't believe that that way of being has to go away. In fact, I really think it shouldn't. I advocate for a much more human approach to running a business, one that fosters a culture of trust and mutual respect, one that enjoys the benefits of diversity that comes from being able to hire from literally anywhere, one that recognizes that accomplishing the mission together is far more important than taking attendance. I believe in a culture that invites people to achieve the work-life balance that keeps them energized and engaged and happy, not to mention healthy. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I will see you in the next one.